Oracle has just pushed into its last level of support, and we are finally looking at a true chance for a potential bottom, a true chance to still extend to new all-time highs within the expected Wave 5. If you don't remember, we have been tracking this large wave C as an ending diagonal for quite some time now. We have been expecting this yellow wave 4 for about 8, 9, 10 months already, ever since this structure has failed to hold internal levels of support that would have allowed it to extend directly higher in a much more direct fashion. And right now, what it has achieved is exactly what we would expect of such a wave 4. It has managed to form a 3-wave correction, similar in proportions with what we've had in this as a wave 2. It has managed to push into the last level of support, the 61.8% retracement, and it's seen the bounce. And by the end of this video, you will know exactly the path that I'm tracking for this reversal to manage to build a reliable pattern that would allow the bottom to be in, as well as the most important levels of resistance that would still threat the possibility of a bottom. Welcome to the trade setup. So, in the case of this structure, we have been considering a potential bottom to have even formed in this initial decline, but it didn't stick. We only got 3 waves up within this rally, quite a decent rally nonetheless, and we have seen a very sharp decline. Now, all of this, quite expected. It's an ABC pattern, a textbook correction, and all we really need is to identify 5 waves down within this wave C, which is quite clearly forming as an impulse. Well, my interpretation of it allows this to be the wave 1 down. In which case, I am looking for the ideal target for the wave 3 to be reached within the next larger decline, which has been the case, the 138.2% extension of the wave 1, and that sits roughly at around $119. This has just been achieved, and the only question remains whether the wave 3 has bottomed either here, right before touching this level, or if the wave 3 has seen the extension to the last low, which imposes the threat that further lows would be still possible. In a preferred count, in a preferred structure for an impulse, I might actually like an additional low better, so I need to be very much aware of the levels of resistance for such a potential wave 4. I'd be watching up to the 50% retracement for such a possible correction, which sits at $149.70, perfectly in line with the structural resistance level that has formed internally in this area, which is in fact an internal wave 4 correction. A typical area in this case to find a top for this larger correction, wave 4, before seeing one last low within this decline. And you may be thinking, well, it has already broken the levels of support in yellow once already. Yeah, it has traded for a couple of days around this region. Nothing sustained though. But what if it does get that one additional low? Does it mean that the setup will fail? Well, quite possibly, although I do not believe it necessarily to be the case that we will see this additional low. You see, this type of pattern where we are looking for one more low would have actually fit quite well in the case of many other stocks that have already broken their internal levels of resistance, their internal correction within the wave 4. And this is certainly a much larger degree decline, which could impose that, yes, it will see this additional low, especially since it hasn't even reached the area of resistance yet, starting at $130. But what I actually want to point out to you is that even if we see this wave 4 and the 5th wave form, it doesn't mean that the 5th wave will actually form a lower low. It is possible to get truncations. I probably prefer for it to form a lower low in terms of probabilities. I find it rather likely than not. But even then, it doesn't need to be a sustained break. And these levels are not fixed rules. We need to allow a bit of leeway. We need to allow these patterns to stray a little. And it doesn't need to get a break. It could even see a break to, let's say, $110. And still succeed in forming the bottom within this yellow wave 4 and the extension within the wave 5. Now, one thing to be clear, I do not know at this point whether we will get that additional low or not. How you prepare for this is ultimately your decision, and this is not even financial advice, so it is even more so the case that it is entirely up to you. Now, my view on it, and what I really want to see for it to prove that a bottom could be in, would be to identify here within the smaller time frame an initial 5e move to the upside. And for me, this would start with this additional wave 1 up, this as a wave 2 down, and ideally this would work out as a wave 3, we would get a wave 4 and then a wave 5. Within this interpretation, you can actually notice I'm looking at the wave 3 top to have formed yesterday, and in this case I would actually have still liked the wave 4 correction to see a reset. That would remain a possibility, and I wouldn't be surprised today that even if in the case of actually most stocks we would see an opening above yesterday's peak, that we will see a rather sharp decline before continuation within the next move to the upside. It is not a guarantee, but this is ideal, and even though Oracle has reached its levels of support, most stocks haven't. The correction seems quite incomplete, and especially within strong reversals, it is possible not to have the levels reached. But I still have to track it. I still have to consider that, for example, this wave 4 is much smaller than the correction we've had in this as a wave 2. And probably if we are to see a more direct extension, it would more likely be the case that this is instead forming a double 1-2, where this would turn into a wave 3 and we would get a much more direct breakout. And we will get a major hint provided by the proportions we see within this correction. If the wave 4 sees an overshoot in formation here, we would likely be following the path of building an initial 5e move to the upside, which is a bullish pattern. It's a setup. We're looking then for a larger 1-2, which is a high probability setup. If it breaks out more directly, as suggested by the overnight trading price, it could very well be the case that we will see a much stronger extension, a 1-2, and then another 1-2 here, a wave 3, a wave 4, and a wave 5. Yeah? Just repeating to make the expectation clear. However, even within this structure, and actually within both structures, we could be looking at this to be a 3-wave pattern quite easily, which is what one would typically expect within a wave 4 correction, which very much leaves open the threat of a continuation lower within a white wave 5. The most likely path that would allow it to push higher and not have this suggestion of lower prices is to build a larger 5e move to the upside, such a pattern that would get into the higher levels of resistance, where we would get the high probabilities of seeing a 3-wave correction and then at the very least another 5e move to the upside, which would very likely lead to a break of the levels of resistance for such a correction within a wave 4. Now, one more thing to notice here before we head off: the proportions of this white wave 4 are expected to be somewhat similar with what we've had in this white wave 2. Could be a bit larger, but we would typically expect it to not be smaller. And since we already have similar proportions, this also means that if we build something like even a 3-wave pattern that extends in this manner, it would most likely be the case that the bottom is indeed in and we will not see extensions lower, as the proportions would be a quite rough fit and it would simply be rather unlikely. And this is about it from me for now. If you want even more setups, even more opportunities, you can check out the Patreon. But for now, these are the levels, this is the trade setup. I hope you enjoyed the video, and if you did, don't forget to leave a like, subscribe, and if you enjoyed the content and want to support it directly, check out the channel membership, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye bye.